Feeling stuck isn't a lack of talent. It's often a lack of clarity about what actually motivates you. In this episode of Beyond the Classroom, I'm joined by Mariamne Borden, co-founder of Passion Coaching, for a practical conversation about how teachers can use intrinsic motivation, not just what jobs are out there, to map a career path that actually fits. We break down Passion Coaching's approach to career alignment, including the 5 elements of passion and the MAG framework: motivations, abilities, and goals. And Mariamne shares simple exercises you can start using right away to connect the dots between who you are, what drives you, and what roles could be a match. Passion Coaching's work started with teens and young adults navigating big transitions, but the principles translate beautifully to mid-career educators who are ready for something new and want a clear, grounded way to find it.
I'm Lisa Harding, ex-EdTech CEO turned certified teacher career coach. It wasn't all that long ago that I was recruiting, interviewing, and hiring teachers for roles in corporate America. Teachers that ended up being some of my all-time best employees. Fast forward through my own career transition, where I left my role as CEO to become a stay-at-home mom, I now work with and empower teachers to transform their lives by turning their once distant career dreams into realities. In this podcast, I give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you do the same. If you're a burnt-out teacher or simply need a change and you're looking to create a life you love, you're in the right place, friend. Let's get started.
I'm joined by Mariamne Borden, co-founder of Passion Coaching, and we're talking about how to identify your intrinsic motivations and use them to connect the dots toward a career that aligns without the overwhelm. We'll talk about 5 elements of passion and the MAG framework: motivations, abilities, and goals, as we hear about practical steps and exercises you can start using right away. Let's dive in. All right. So everyone, let's join Mariamne onto the show today. Hello, Mariamne.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining us. I was really excited to have you on the show because you are in the world of coaching, and I love the business, your Passion Coaching. And I'm excited to dive into what that means, who you work with, and then how that might apply to teachers. So let's start off today. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and about Passion Coaching.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for asking. So my name is Mariamne, and I'm the co-founder of Passion Coaching. We're a motivation-based company. And so we work with, you could say, individuals across their lifespan, and to specify that piece, individuals who are approaching a transition. And so we serve teens, young adults, some mid-career professionals, and parents. And so the transition with teens is usually from high school to college, or I don't know what to do. The transition, the transition for young adults is big. You know, it's either out of college, or it's into their first job, or they're in their first job and they didn't love it. And so it's just reevaluating and recontemplating, if that's even a word. What do I want to do with myself and my life? Because your career defines so much of what your life is. And how do you even begin to think about that? And so we see that also sometimes with the mid-career professionals. However, I would say they are the most wise or insightful because now they've collected all this data and information about themselves. So even if they feel overwhelmed or confused or not really sure where to pivot, they at least know, okay, I've done all of these things, right? So that's Passion Coaching's main objective, really, Lisa, is to bring motivation to the table. Kind of like in this last 5-10 years, SEL, social emotional education, has really taken off. We envision motivation to take off as a concept because motivation, just like social emotional is a part of who we are, motivation is such a huge part of who we are. It literally is who we are. Motivation means to move, to take action. And how do we want to move and take action, right? So we want people to be in touch with their motivations and who they are through that avenue.
And I'm sure my listeners are already connecting the dots on why I wanted to invite you onto the show today. And I know maybe your main focus or primary work is with teens and young adults, but as you mentioned, also going into those career changers as well. And a lot of the things you just said just totally resonated with me, like, feeling stuck, not sure where to go next. And motivation is definitely a big part of that. So speaking of motivation, what motivated you to get into passion coaching and get into this whole world of helping people kind of get unstuck and move forward?
No, totally. Thank you for that answering that question. I studied psychology in college with no real understanding when I went into it that I needed to specialize, for example. I just loved and was attracted to the study of psychology. My mom spent countless hours sharing her life stories, her life relationships when I became a teen. And I learned so many lessons about psychology and different people. And so I've always loved psychology. And so when I had spent 10, after having spent 10 years in the social work sector, I kind of felt like the psychology that I wanted to bring to the world was not being brought through those avenues. And so I had the fortune of being introduced to Paul. We were in a small little community where two of my coworkers, unbeknownst to each other, told me about an opening. And so this was back in 2015. So we're going on 11 years on April and working together. And so what attracted to me about Paul's methodology, back then we used to work with preschoolers and their families. And so we've always focused on motivation, specifically intrinsic motivation. And so back then he called his approach the learner-centric approach. And it was very simple. It was just, this is what amazed me and what has kept me going with passion coaching is just seeing how even a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, you can follow their motivation. Paul had a technique called follow attention. And so literally we would follow the preschooler in this little room, and we would already have different activities. We just mix it up, bring a sample set, and we'd follow them wherever they wanted to, wherever they were motivated to interact with. And so then we would engage there. We would use a tool of Paul's called the intrinsic learning motivation ILM wheel. And so then that wheel has colors, numbers, shapes, textures, et cetera, et cetera. And so then as the toddler is playing, quote unquote, with different objects, then we're introducing the learning piece. So that really drew my attention because you can start cultivating motivation from a very young early age. And then why is that even important? I mean, I immediately resonated and kind of understood intuitively why that was important. I think one of the biggest gifts for me personally, I see it this way. One of the biggest gifts that parents can give their children beyond an inheritance is that setting them up to be able to pursue intrinsic motivations, to pursue passions, because as the cliche says, right? If you love your job, you never work a day in your life. So the rest is history. We've evolved. Paul's always intuited that we need to go up a grade or go up an age group because really to get to the group that's struggling the most with motivation, and that really is adults. So that's kind of why we're in this space now with passion coaching, is because a lot of adults are self-aware that they're lacking something intrinsic in their lives at this point. And so why live a life without your intrinsics? So it's Paul's created this strategy, this approach with tools that actually create an infrastructure for understanding yourself, getting the self-awareness of what your intrinsic motivations are, the patterns amongst those, what skills you want to develop based on those motivations, and what kind of goals align with those motivations and skills. So yeah, that to me, it's kind of like 1 + 1 = 2 in a sense. But of course, you have to understand it and have spent the time in it as I have. But I still say it's one of the easiest things to understand because once you hear it for the first time, it makes sense to you because we all have motivations.
I love that. And something I wanted to bring back into the conversation that you mentioned early on was just like the identity of who people are. And I think teachers, maybe more so than other careers, they don't think like I teach. They really think I am a teacher. And so it's hard for them to kind of see behind that. And motivation gets tangled with feelings of guilt and uncertainty and fear. And when that comes down to your identity, not just what you do for a living, it can get pretty intense. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the motivation framework that you and Paul are implementing and what teachers need to know and how to apply that to their career transition. So let's start what do you think someone should know about just motivation in general and what their motivations are before they even start a career transition?
That's a great question, Lisa. Yeah, I think people need to have this general understanding that motivations are not about discipline or pushing harder or, okay, I have to fix my mindset because I'm not on track. Um, that seeing it that way, it causes people to blame themselves. So once people understand that, then they become more curious about their motivations. And so we teach people that motivation isn't about effort, it's about alignment. And so that's where our MAG framework comes into place. It's a three-stage framework. So MAG stands for motivations, abilities or skills, and goals. And so one of the things, and I'll just kind of keep it to the first level, which is motivations. For a teacher that has all of these different things going on in their mind, just as you mentioned, we would spend a lot of time on the motivations piece. And what we do is sort of a motivation inventory. And so in this inventory, we've created tons of questions. Some of them repeat themselves from different angles. And so it's intentional to really draw out what your strongest motivations are and what those strongest patterns are amongst those motivations. Because that information about yourself really is inside of you. You just need somebody to help you draw it out. And so we spend time thinking about taking a life inventory. So we think about what are the passions in your life that you could remember having since you were a little kid, since you were two, if you can remember, and how have those presented themselves throughout your life? And I think that piece is really important for teachers to see because they'll be able to include motivations from their years as teachers. And they'll be able to incorporate that moving forward into career pivots that they decide to take when working with you or anybody else, right? And so that time that we spend there on the motivation level is what really helps teachers or any adult understand themselves. So bottom line or takeaway, I would say is having that self-awareness of your own motivations and even being able to separate which motivations are intrinsic and which motivations are extrinsic.
So that
Mhm.
kind of brings me. My next question is, and I
Yeah.
love that activity that you do. Going back to you were two. For some folks like me, that's quite a few years. But
Yeah.
so you have this huge list. How can
Mhm.
you start to whittle it down to know which ones are motivations that might lead you to a next career versus ones that aren't really going to lead you down a new path? It was just kind of an in the moment or like a side motivation, if you will.
No, totally. I love that question. So how we're able to kind of tease those out is all of our motivation questions are based on intrinsic motivations, not extrinsic. So we don't even focus on the extrinsic to begin with. We will focus on the extrinsic if you're bringing it up a lot. We will explore that because that is something that it's kind of holding you back. And we will explore that with the goal of you being able to take action on that extrinsic motivation, meaning if you want less of it, what are some action steps we start to kind of determine? What are some action steps that you could take to have less of that and let less of the external pressures influence your decision making moving forward? But since our motivation question sets are all based on intrinsic motivation, that's how we're able to keep it based on what is intrinsically motivating the person. And what we do is we follow the theory of Robert Vallerand, Dr. Vallerand. So this is fairly new. 20 years ago, he defined passion as having 5 elements. What do you love? What do you invest time and energy in? What things are part of your identity? Just as you mentioned, identity. What things are you, let me see if I could remember the other two. I have it on my wall over here. But you start to kind of get the picture. And so there's two more key elements. And what we do is we create a table where we have those elements. And because passion is the strongest form of motivation based off of this theory that we follow, we will separate within passions what are some of your intrinsic motivations. So, for example, from passion stems your motivations to help others, so your values and concerns. It also stems your interests, and it also stems your curiosity. So it really starts to help a person organize what are higher motivations and what are lower motivations. And so then from there, we don't just keep it theoretical. We actually take action on your intrinsic motivations. We do we do little skill goals so that you can test drive per se some of these intrinsic motivations that came up for you, and to see if you're really committed to them, or maybe they were just the curiosity or an interest. And so yeah, and so throughout that process, this is the most important part of what we do, and it's actually what Paul did. And sorry, I keep bringing Paul up. Paul is the founder and creator of Passion Coaching and the ILM framework and the MAG program that I told you about. So that's actually what Paul did in his life, and so it's what we do with people. And so we then, as you're working on that skill, we ask you every week. Okay, what skills do you want to keep from this skill that you're working on, and which skills do you want to discard, which we would call pivoting and adapting. That part is the most central to really being able to make progress on knowing what you want to take action on next.
Okay, and that makes sense. And I love how within the framework, you're not just identifying, like you said, you're taking the next step, putting it into action, and kind of going forward. Is there a step on how to take that and align it to a specific career? Like, do you have experience with that? I know a lot of times it might be with teens that might be looking either into a career or a college path. How can you whittle that down even more to apply it into a career path?
100%. So that would be the third level to our MAG model. So that's goals, or you could even open it up to goals, opportunities, and self-created opportunities. And so yes, we don't want it to just be in theory, right? We want people to put all of this work they've done into the real world, right? And so if your focus is careers, what we'll do is we'll take the information on your intrinsic motivations and the skills that you're most intrinsically motivated to develop and pursue. And we will look at the possibility space, is what we call it. There's a huge possibility space, and teens and adults alike sometimes don't even realize how much of a huge possibility space exists. We don't want to limit you to just a few career trajectories, because then we're doing kind of what was done in school in a sense already, where you only get 5 subjects to see if you're intrinsically motivated by those 5 subjects. So in this possibility space, somebody might discover something completely unrelated to teaching, and then they might even cross it may even cross with another strong motivation that is related to teaching. And so now they're creating a new career opportunity for themselves that involves two different domains. So that's just one example of what can happen when we look at the possibility space that's aligned with your motivations and your skills.
Thank you. And I love that we were able to touch on kind of all three steps of the MAG process. So motivation, ability, and goals, or self-created opportunities, as you kind of explained there.
Hey teachers, quick break in the podcast because I have something truly special for you. If you're listening right now thinking, I know I want out of the classroom, but I don't know what my next step is, I want you to hear this. On Saturday, February 21st, I'm hosting a free live teacher career transition masterclass designed specifically for educators who want clarity but feel overwhelmed about where to start. In this training, I'll walk you through a proven roadmap to turn that I want out feeling into a clear plan and real progress without trying to figure everything out at once. And this isn't just inspiration. You'll leave with practical coaching activities, clear next steps, and if you attend live, you'll get a free resume template with teacher to corporate bullet point examples to help you get started right away. It's live, it's free, and spots are filling fast. Head on over to our website at teacher-transition-career-event to save your spot. And back to the podcast.
So let's say we have a teacher listening in and they're like, this is all great. I love this information. It makes sense. This is helpful, but I'm just so stuck and I'm so overwhelmed. Is there one practical next step that they could do right after this podcast as a little exercise to help them in this direction?
Yeah, I love that. So totally, there's two ways you could go about it. So one way is, we always offer one free kind of consultation. It's a call over Zoom where we do a bit of the motivation inventory just so that the person can experience it and see for themselves that that's the kind of work they want to do on themselves. So that's always good to experience it. Why not, right? It's free. And then secondly, I would be so happy to share a couple of tools that we easily can kind of do this work with at a very high level. More superficial level, but still you can get that practice. So one of them is our passion roots activity. So in that activity, you'll have the 5 roots of passion listed out, and then you'll name 2 to 5 different motivations that you have within each passion root. Then you'll circle the ones that repeat themselves. And so that kind of gives you an idea of, okay, here are a few strong motivations. I can start working with that. And then a second tool that we have is, I'm trying to think here. Oh, our brainstorming, our possibility space brainstorming, which is very, very practical. You can take the information from the passion roots, and then you can choose one of the strongest motivations that repeated itself, put it into our passion challenge brainstorming or skill challenge brainstorming mind map. And so then from there, let's say that one of the strongest intrinsic motivations you had was cooking, let's just say. So then you'll brainstorm all the different possibilities of careers with cooking, or sports is another one. For example, you'll explore going pro, but you also explore ancillary domains such as, being the team doctor, being the team therapist, being the team coach, being the team assistant coach, being the referee, actually being a vendor or contractor with a different company. Maybe you started your own teaching company to consult sports teams or sports players going through stuff, and right, even going through transitions of their own. So basically those two tools can kind of start to help you form more self-awareness of your intrinsic motivations and then actually apply them to different opportunities in the real world.
I love those tools and I love how they kind of connect, and I can just see like how it could turn into this. I picture a visual web where you start and you're like, well, I like cooking, but like what I'm not going to be a chef. But then you challenge yourself, like, well, I like to be around food. Maybe I want to work for Nabisco and stock the shelves, or like just you have to start challenging yourself to think like, what else can I do in that world? Or I'm at for my folks, I'm mid-career. I'm probably not going to go back and become a doctor, but if I'm passionate about medicine, maybe I could be a billing coder. Maybe I could work at the front desk. So, it's kind of that practical exercise. And, I know for a lot of my audience, it's like, well, I'm not going to go back to school for 8 years and be a doctor, but that doesn't mean that passion should be ignored, because there's other ways to explore that. So I love those examples. That's amazing.
Exactly, Lisa, you nailed it. I would even say, um, forget school. Like if you tell us, no, I don't want to go back to school, that's great, right? Okay, we there you don't need to go back to school. There, it's employers look for skills. So how can you get skilled up in your intrinsics and your intrinsically motivated skills? How can you get skilled up? And we'll look at the possibility space for how you can get skilled up. Maybe it's an apprenticeship where you learn the skills by being an apprentice, right? So there's so many possibilities. That's why we call it this possibility space. Oftentimes we limit ourselves to think, oh no, I have to follow a linear trajectory. But the world is a lot more offers a lot more opportunities than we realize, and also it creates the space for us to create our own too. But it is a little scary and overwhelming to think of about doing that on your own, right? So that's why we exist, to be able to provide that support and technical implementation piece.
I love that. And one thing we talk about at the academy, whether it's someone that's just starting out exploring careers, or someone that knows what they want to do all the way through the process of, interviewing and negotiating, it's like the accountability and having a support partner at the different steps really does make a huge difference in moving forward. And a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily groundbreaking. We all know what motivation is. We've heard about it our whole life.
Yeah.
But it's a new way to look at it with someone who is an expert in that area and can kind of guide us, because teachers are very busy. They're juggling 20, 30 different things at once, the burnout, the overwhelm, the guilt, all those emotions on top of it. Sometimes we just need a path forward, someone that's going to support us and kind of guide us through the process. And I love that you're bringing that in through passion, not just for career transitioners, but I know working with teens and young adults. And we may actually have some teachers in the audience that work with teens and young adults, or counselors out there. So for them as well, keep in mind, you may know a young adult in your own household or at your school that could use a little guidance as well. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing a bit about motivations and passions. And I love the phrase, like, creating your own opportunities and the possibility matrix. So I hope that this has resonated with listeners. Are there any last thoughts or tips that you would like to give us today?
Yeah, I think, like what you said right now really spoke to me about um, people kind of need that gentle encouragement and support. I think, you're so right, especially when it comes to making decisions about things like career, because the system that we have grown up in and been educated in is very rigid. Everything has been decided for us. So once we start trying to make decisions for ourselves, it is all those things, confusing and scary, and a lot more than that. So I think, like, for me, and the inspiration behind all of this is, our founder Paul. He over four organizations pivoted and adapted until he found the right fit. And even before that, really, when he read his first book from front to end on Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X, it's actually started the pivoting process. And so what everybody should keep in mind is that um, you're exploring your motivations and finding the ones that you want to pursue it's like an art, right? And so that why I think that can give people reassurance is because you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. So even if you do this alone, some of this work alone, just know that you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. And one of the things I appreciate on your website, and the information that you share is, do one little thing. Start with one little thing. And it's so true, Lisa. Like, you just start with doing a passion roots, for example. Okay, oh, these are cool. I actually agree with these. I would agree, right? So yeah, definitely be compassionate with yourself through this process.
I love that. And you're just echoing so much of, what we talk about here. So I love when guests kind of echo that, because we do have to give ourselves grace. This is a career transition, especially for a mid-professional, especially for a teacher, where it is a career that is also passion-based, very identity-heavy. Giving yourself grace along the way is just so important. So thank you for joining us. We will drop links to any resource, your website, how to connect with you in the show notes. So listeners, you can continue on if this spoke to you. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa. It was a pleasure.
Cut.
Yay! We
Yay,
did
that
it.
was awesome. You did amazing. I can't believe you think that you're not good at public speaking.
You were so right. Like, actually, just speaking from the heart, like I didn't know all this information would pour out of me. So, we are our worst critics sometimes. We think
We
I don't
are.
know how to answer that, but we it's all there. Yeah.
It's all
Thank
there. Well, you're
yeah, thank
phenomenal.
you. You too. I love the work you're doing, I have to say. I've compared a lot of the teacher transition businesses, and this isn't just because we got on your podcast, but I like yours so much because you speak of your own experience and actually the bootstrapping you did yourself, the pivoting and adapting you did yourself, and they're in related but also very unrelated ways, domains and industries. And so, first of all, that's just such a great example. And then secondly, I think you're very thoughtful in the way that you approach supporting a teacher in whatever phase they're in. Yeah, yeah, I love the work
Thank
that you do.
you.
Super cool to be able
Thank
to
you. And,
collaborate with you.
when we were talking, I was just like, I have literally been blessed because I feel like I found my passion early on. Like somehow the first company that I started working for, I picked it because I was passionate about education and teachers because my parents were teachers, and I ended up being there for 15 years. And I just feel so blessed that I kind of got into that. And I was a business person, so I had other passions and interests. But at the end of the day, I was always helping teachers, and that is what kind of drove me. And I really do credit my success in the business world to the passion. I think if I was in a different company, doing a different industry, I would not have had that passion at all. And then
Absolutely.
I think that's why I continue to do what I do, because I just love it. And I wish that for everyone. I wish everyone could find that.
Absolutely. More than anything, that's what we wish. Like, if we lived in a passion economy where money didn't exist, that's all we would be preaching, because we hope that for everybody. And the fact that you were in an industry that you were passionate about did push you to work harder, because the research is there. A study done by Deloitte University confirms that passionate professionals are some of the most well paid and purpose-driven and filled with meaning because of that, what I just said. If you're passionate about something, you're willing to work long hours. You're willing to think creatively, right, outside of the box and contribute beyond the expectations. And so, and that cycle never ends because you're so passionate about it. If you think the work on genius too, like Albert Einstein, we all know him. We have this article, Albert Einstein wasn't a genius. He was just intrinsically motivated. And so basically like you early on, he took on this love for physics and just kept at it, kept at it in so many ways until he gained all this knowledge and practice, right? So
Oh.
so that you're a passionate professional, that's what we would call you.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been even compared in the same sentence as Albert Einstein, and now I think I need to let my husband know
Yes,
that I, in fact, have
please.
similar qualities as Albert Einstein. He needs to respect
Please.
me.
Please. He should be the first to know that, okay? Please.
Well,
Yeah.
I would love to stay connected, and when Paul is feeling better, I don't have the exact like connection in my head, but I do feel like there may be some ways for our businesses to work together in some sort of
Yeah.
other like a referral capability, or because we talk about this in the academy, but we don't deep dive and we don't have like a designated motivation expert. So there may be some work that we could do there.
Mhm. I would agree in generally speaking on that point because so where we drop off is on the goals part, so the possibility space. So we'll do work in that, help you explore, but there can always be a lot more work done in that possibility space, and I tend to see that in career coaching. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but in career coaching, that part is essential to helping the individual. So so that's something that can always be okay. So your possibility space worksheet can always now you move into working with your career coach. You know, like your teacher career coach. They have this information, so it's easier to a better starting point. Um, or an easier starting point, I should say, not better, an easier starting point to then do that work and delve deeper, right, into those
Yeah,
possibilities.
and same
Yeah.
with I see teachers, and because we've started branching off into like referrals to other experts, like, and we can get into that, but basically if someone gets stuck in one area, they might have our membership, but they can add on additional services. Like right now
Mhm.
they're very practical, like someone that helps you with your resume, someone that reviews your LinkedIn. But one of the
Mhm.
areas we eventually want to offer something is have a dedicated person that helps you like do career exploration or self-discovery even before that. And I could see maybe
Mhm.
a fit there as our business
Mhm.
grows. So I
Thank
definitely
you.
would love to stay connected. If you could
Absolutely.
share a bit, about how this went with Paul, keep him updated.
I will do.
And when
Will
the
do.
time is right, we can regroup and explore some other ways to work together.
That's perfect, Lisa. I love that. We'll stay connected. I will share with Paul, and I will share some links with you.
Yes, yes. Send those over.
Okay.
I normally do everything right after, but since I have my little one home, it may take me a
Yeah.
couple days, but I will send me the links to the any tools that are free that people can
Yes.
access, maybe a link to
100%.
where they could sign up for the exploratory call, your website, and I can follow up. I have to check my schedule. I'm not sure when this will be scheduled to air, but I'll get everything I need from you, and
Okay.
we'll get it up and we'll stay in touch.
Perfect. And I will aim for the end of the week just because I'm feeling very sick too. So
Okay.
since you're not you don't have a pressing deadline
Nope,
on that,
nope,
then
no pressing
yeah,
time.
thank you on that. And uh yes, I wanted to say, but I think I may have lost the point that came to mind was the last point about um gosh dang it, I hate when this happens, but the oh yeah, now I remember. We work at schools and we've developed really close relationships with teachers, especially with the summit schools is who we partner with. We work with we do an expedition called Passion Projects, and so we work with teachers that also serve as mentors, and a lot of them are so burnt out. So knowing about your service, the academy, I can refer so many teachers to you too because I I think they'll feel so taken care of because you were a teacher. So it's like it's safe space to be, and it immediately feels like, oh, I can do this,
I
So
love that.
definitely let me know what that referral process on my end would look like if you can. That would be
Sure,
great. Okay.
sure.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Awesome.
Well, no one is rushed, so that is good. Go rest up. I'm going to check on my little one. Thank you for fitting me in
Okay, hope
today.
the
Tell
little one is
Paul
good.
we're sorry to miss him, but we'll
Yeah.
uh, we'll meet soon. All right. Take care.
Perfect. Take care, Lisa.
Thanks again to our friends at Passion Coaching for joining us today and for giving us such a clear framework and practical steps teachers can actually use. I love the reminder that motivation and passion aren't just nice to have, they're clues. And when you learn how to name what drives you, it becomes so much easier to connect the dots toward a career path that fits. Friends, if you're listening and thinking, okay, I'm ready to do the exercises we talked about, don't let this be a one and done episode. Choose one small step today. Grab a notebook, write down what stood out, and start paying attention to what energizes you, what matters to you, and what you want more of in your next chapter. As always, you can find resources and links in the show notes. And remember, friends, the journey is just the beginning. Embrace the adventure. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a teacher friend who's ready for a change. It helps more educators find the support they need.